when you ask someone what it means to be an American, they'll tell you a lot of things like freedom and popular sovereignty or liberty. But one thing that always gets tangled up in all those sort of values or founding principles is the idea of, um, you know, rule of law, that nobody is above the law. There's a lot of people in Florida actually who like make YouTube channels about how if shit hits the fan and we go into a post-apocalyptic United States and the government falls and all this kind of stuff, rule of law is out the door, and so you're basically able to raid the Walgreens and Walmarts and stockpile, and I don't know, they're just very obsessed with, you know, prepping for, a total meltdown of the country, which I don't think is any time near. But, obviously you have the news of President Joe Biden pardoning his own son unequivocally and unconditionally. And, I would say this is a very curveball, especially the rhetoric that Biden was spewing out the entire time about how, he has trust in the justice system, and, he's anti-corruption, he's basically saying, I'm unequivocally for rule of law, that nobody is above the law. Just because he is my son, I am not going to pardon him. And I think he was pressured and at least, forced to say those things because, on the flip side, his arch nemesis, Donald Trump, he was going and undergoing a shit ton of trials and counts and things of that nature. And, it's funny how both men use the same idea that, the justice system is corrupting us, that there are bad actors at play that are making it so that um, my side or my party is being unfairly treated. And I think the reason why Biden does this is, all these, charges against Trump are suddenly being dropped out of nowhere. So, there is a little bit of evidence. I'll allow the argument to have merit that, if Donald Trump wasn't who he was, these charges would not be perpetuated and, blasted upon him. That's not to say that I don't think he committed any of the charges or any of that, but, the idea of weaponizing the justice system is a little bit evident given the fact that Trump is who he is and the quote unquote danger he presents to the Democratic Party or Americans, according to Joe Biden. But the difference I see now is now that Trump's being, all his charges are being dropped. Now I think Biden is just gonna, especially, obviously he's not going to be the next president. He's just gonna say, you know what, F it. I'm just gonna pardon my son. And I will also acknowledge the merit that, hey, there are several bad actors at play within, you know, the justice system, maybe who are unfairly or disproportionately affecting Hunter Biden. Like I said, also, do I think Hunter Biden is totally innocent? Probably not. But that's just the way things are. So when you talk about the idea of rule of law, I think the president, in certain degrees, needs to be, above the law. And I think the best example in modern history would be, you know, President Obama was very famous for using his drone strikes, especially in Libya. And one of those drones which was ordered by President Obama, happened to hit an innocent kid, a citizen who was a U.S. citizen and, in Libya. I think he was with his family or something. And, one of the drones that Obama okayed and ordered his action killed him. Killed that kid. He was innocent and a U.S. citizen. So, by all means necessary, if rule of law was totally applicable and that nobody was over the law, you know, you should be able to try President Obama as a murderer. But obviously we didn't, because one, he was acting within his official capacity as president to say, hey, I'm doing counterterrorism efforts, this is what I want to do, X, Y, and Z. So I think there is some merit that comes with, the idea that presidential immunity or executive privilege exists, but, you know, how far can you stretch that idea of executive privilege is anyone's guess. I mean, the Supreme Court obviously saying that all official acts, the president has total immunity. And, I don't buy the arguments that Trump can just kill anybody he wants and, like, literally anybody he wants and get away with it. You're kind of stretching it a little too far, and I get why. Obviously, the media needs to have their clicks and shares and views, but for official acts outlaid in the Constitution, it only makes sense for me to say, hey, you know what? The president should have some sort of immunity because, if I were president, I wouldn't want to touch anything military wise because, God, who knows, something that I did would result in me being tried for murder or anything like that. But the presidency is very simple in the sense where the Constitution explicitly says, right, that the president, the executive, has to make sure that all the laws are faithfully executed. That's a big umbrella. And so, obviously, with the Supreme Court putting it down to the federal courts, I don't think Trump wins from this case. I don't think Biden wins from this case. I don't think any president wins from that case in particular. It's simply just making the Supreme Court have more say and the court system have more say in what the Constitution really means. So, as someone you know, who doesn't like the intermixing of, the three branches of government, technically four, it frustrates me. I think the judicial system ought not to, play as a bigger role as that we are seeing them to play. Um, but, the idea that, you know, it's a happy middle, right? So I think, long story short, I think the president does deserve some immunity in certain cases. But once it's like if you give a mouse a cookie, right? Once you give a cookie, it's going to ask for milk and so on and so forth. So I think the fact that you can stretch this immunity is maybe a little terrifying, or maybe just a reality you have to accept. That maybe there is no middle ground unless, the president is willing to accept said middle ground. I guess there is no immunity, or there is total unreigning immunity. I guess that's up to the court to decide. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.